So today I wanted to talk about my discovery. Okay, I'm not going to claim that this is my original discovery. I'm sure other people have also discovered this. But sometimes the best way to overcome anxiety of any form is to go through it rather than around it. I love analogies and I also love horror movies. And one thing I have noticed is that movies are often the scariest the more the creature or the monster or the entity is largely unknown. Like when it is still shrouded in mystery and I can't actually physically see it, like maybe a glimpse of it, but I can't see it, that leaves way more to the imagination for me to freak out about than if I actually saw the creature. One movie I definitely think demonstrates this is the movie called Mama, which was made in 2014, I think. I'm not sure if you watched it, but I think the brilliance of that movie is the buildup. For the majority of the movie, you can't see the entity or the creature thing, and it's masterful the way they build it up and just create creepy moments and leave you guessing of what this thing is. But in the end, they show the thing, the creature, full on. And when you look at it, you're like, yeah, that was not what I was expecting, and this is not that scary anymore. And that is why a lot of people have hated on this movie, even though I think it's pretty well made for the most part, because the ending is just like so kind of anticlimactic in a way. Like it just reveals the thing, and you're like, okay. But I still think it's worth watching, and I still think it's a beautiful movie, even though I know that's a weird description to say for a horror movie. But moving on, the point is, our anxiety is sometimes like the boogeyman in the closet, where the more we avoid it and keep the closet closed, like the scarier that anxiety provoking situation seems. But when you pull open the doors and just walk through and just like confront it, even if it's uncomfortable, the anxiety provoking situation or the level of anxiety you feel towards it starts to shrink slowly, and you realize that you can handle it and that it's not actually that bad in a lot of cases. Not all cases, but in a lot of cases. Now, to give you the clearest example of this is a few years ago, I attended a support group for young adults who live with anxiety, like me. And in that support group, they really focused on teaching us something called acceptance and commitment therapy. Now, I am not a mental health professional, so if you are a mental health professional, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. But I wanted to share with you the biggest insights that I learned from that support group focused on acceptance and commitment therapy. Of course, this is a very short and simplified version of it. But basically, there were two parts. You get a hint of that from the name. So the first part is acceptance, and the second part is commitment. So acceptance is really about acknowledging your anxiety and just accepting it. Like you may not like it, but you accept it and you learn to live with it, even if you don't prefer it. So there's many ways that you can go about with accepting it. Like one could be just like acknowledging your negative internal chatter, or technically you can also just view the internal chatter as neutral and not necessarily negative or positive. But anyway, you view the anxiety in your head and you just kind of witness it. You don't attach a judgment to it. You don't call it good or bad. You're just like, oh, it's there. But you don't necessarily cling on to it and latch onto it and like let yourself get caught up in the cycle of thoughts. You just notice it and it's there and that's it. The other way that you can also accept your anxiety is through things like mindfulness meditation, which helps with things like that in terms of acknowledging your thoughts and letting them come and go, but also making peace with the physiological response in your body of when you're in fight or flight mode as a result of anxiety. So when you're meditating, you're aware of what's happening in your body, you realize, like, you notice the sweaty palms, you notice the racing heartbeat, you notice the tension in your body when you're anxious, you notice the like shortness of breath, like the shaking of your limbs, like you notice all of these sensations, but you don't attach a judgment to them. You allow them to be, and you don't try to resist them. You don't try to fight them. You don't try to suppress them or deny them. You just let them be. And then as you breathe through it, it's like training yourself to realize that you're actually safe. Like, you may not feel safe because you're in fight or flight mode physiologically and maybe even psychologically, but in breathing, like very controlled breaths, you're telling yourself ultimately that you are safe in this situation. And so, really, it's the whole idea of like, I'm living with anxiety and I'm not fighting it or anything, resisting it, I'm just accepting it. So, the second part of acceptance and commitment therapy is the commitment, committing to living a life according to your values. So, in this session, we did a little exercise where we determined what our core values are in life. And that's really different for everybody. But for me, I realized that I valued growth, I valued connection, and I valued contribution. I valued being of service and giving back to the people around me. And so basically, the idea is to commit to living a life according to your values rather than according to your anxieties. So, for example, one day, my friend invited me to go to a concert with another friend that she had who I didn't know. And I have massive, massive, massive social anxiety. I have another video where I talk more about that, and I'll link to it here somewhere. But yeah, I have massive social anxiety. In fact, when I was in elementary school, I didn't talk for several years because it was that bad. Anyway, so this kind of situation I'd normally decline, because not because I didn't want to go to a concert with my friend, but because I was like anxious about her other friend who I didn't know. I was worried that it would be too awkward, or what if they didn't like me and I couldn't even enjoy myself at the concert. Normally, I would avoid that kind of situation. But after going through this acceptance and commitment therapy thing, I thought, hey, I value connection. Even if I'm socially anxious, ultimately, when I do vibe with someone and I connect on a deep level, or even on a surface level way sometimes, it really means a lot to me. And sometimes I think that's what life's about. It's like amazing, right? So I thought, okay, I'm not gonna live my life according to my anxiety. I'm gonna live my life according to my values. So I'm gonna go to this concert with my friend and meet her other friend. And what I found was it wasn't actually that bad. I actually really enjoyed the concert and I got along with her other friend. Like, yeah, we're not best friends, but we're like fine with each other. It was totally fine. And that actually gave me a little more confidence because I lived boldly. And it's the same thing with my value towards contribution and giving back. Like, honestly, I am scared shitless every time I have to make a new YouTube video for you. It petrifies me. A lot of things could go wrong. I could say something wrong that I might regret later on. I could be judged or whatever. But what gives me the courage to continue doing this and creating this content despite my anxiety is living according to my value of ultimately making a contribution to the lives of other people in some way. And it's the same with my value of growth. It's what propels me to seek situations outside of my comfort zone, even if I'm afraid, because ultimately I just want to learn. I want to be a better version of myself. And yeah, I want to challenge myself. I want to expand. And so that's the biggest thing I learned from all of these situations is that yes, sometimes the best way to overcome anxiety is through it rather than around it, rather than avoiding it. It's confronting it. Because the danger with trying to go around the anxiety is that you unintentionally build a life that is built around your perceived limitations or built around your perceived weaknesses, built around your fears and your anxieties rather than on your desires and your goals and your mission. And so your life starts to shrink because there's very little wiggle room, because everything worthwhile has risk. And so you're like tiptoeing around and you can't live. You can't live a truly meaningful life that you're destined or meant to live. And so, yes, sometimes you can't get rid of the anxiety. Sometimes it is still there, even if you tried really hard to eliminate it. Believe me, I understand the frustration of that. But the difference here is that even though you are still living with anxiety, it no longer dictates your life. Now, the anxiety is in the passenger seat rather than in the driver's seat. And you, despite the anxiety, can still go on to live a truly meaningful, impactful, and freaking exciting life. So, yes, the next time that you feel anxious and you're tempted to avoid the anxiety provoking situation in large ways or even tiny, minute ways, remember this video and try to trudge through it rather than around it, and you might just be surprised by how much your life expands. So yeah, that is it, and I hope you found value in this video, and if you did, please do share it with other people around you who you think needs to hear these words. Please do like, comment, and subscribe, and let me know in the comments below, what are your top 3 values in life? And how are you going to commit to them rather than designing your life around your fears and your anxieties and your perceived limitations? Let me know in the comments below. I think that would be a super, super interesting discussion to have. So yes, until next time, I will see you then.